Paramount TV's Yellowstone tells the epic saga of a Montana ranching family. I'm Zach Laws of Gold Derby, and with me now is Brian Tyler. He's the composer of this series. And Brian, just tell us a little bit about why you wanted to become involved with this. I mean, it's a huge, epic Western. It's got a big scope. What about it spoke to you personally?
Well, what drew me initially to it were two things: Taylor Sheridan, writing and directing it, creating it, and being a Western. It's something that I hadn't really delved into in a long form, it- certainly in this particular way. But Taylor, his approach was, let's do this like a 10-hour movie. It's very rare you see a writer director of films and everything come in and literally write and direct every single episode. It's just such a huge, time consuming, incredible endeavor. Um and and just the idea of this story, this kind of um this family that is at war, partly with itself, partly with others, the encroachment of technology into rural areas. All these different things are kind of an interesting fodder. But when I saw what he had shot for the pilot, then it was a done deal. It was beautiful, tragic, exciting, mysterious, all those things that for me as a composer, perfect tapestry.
There's a long tradition of great Western scores. I mean, you think of everything from Max Steiner to obviously
Yeah,
Ennio Morricone with the spaghetti westerns.
sure.
What were some influences for you for your work, or did you try to avoid, looking to other examples of the genre?
Yeah, the way it's shot, you could watch 90% of it and not really realize the time that you're in. Um, it's out in Montana, cattle ranchers, and every once in a while you'll see moments of modernity, but it really feels like a classic tale that's that's out of time, which I think gives it a more of a timeless feel. So I wanted to be aware of that, and in that I wanted to go back and look at music of the past. Now the thing is about, like, you're absolutely right. The Max Steiner vibe, all of that, the quintessential Western score, which seems to be pastoral and kind of American, Aaron Copland esque, and then
Mhm.
you have the Ennio Morricone kind of spin on it that came around with the spaghetti westerns. And yeah, you're right. I wanted to not do that. Um, the My thought was, well, this movie, it has Native Americans, and it's a big part of the story. And then you have this family, this kind of this central figure, which is the Duttons. And I thought, well, it's interesting. From the Duttons' perspective, the music could really be like the Old West. But what is the Old West? We're really a nation of immigrants, and so is our music. And so I kind of went and I looked at music that came from, you know, uh, like the humble roots of kind of what we know as like fiddle music and things like that, is really an amalgamation of Irish jig music and gypsy music and all these different things from all around the world. There's influences of Africa. There's influences of the Middle East, and I mean all sorts of things kind of had combined and coalesced, and eventually became what we knew as American music. So I actually looked at that more than anything, and that's why it sounds kind of a bit ancient. It sounds like it's out of time and almost like folk music in the true sense of the word folk, not American folk, but kind of um, folk music of like the 16th century and 17th century. That's why those melodies sound like that.
It's interesting because last time we talked, it was about Crazy Rich Asians, and you talked about wanting to capture like an old-fashioned kind of
Right.
comedy feel, and now it's like there's always old-fashioned things that
I,
you.
I, yeah, that's my jam. I think that there's a lot to be said for diving back and into the past. There's a gold mine. I mean, modern scoring has a certain sound and tonality, and there's certain harmonies, and the cool thing about if you go back far enough into, it's really very humble. It was music that you didn't need to have gone to Juilliard and play it on the Stradivarius. These are people that would busk and play on the streets and played their what became known as fiddle, because people that came to America for one reason or another originally, these are not the wealthy, highly educated. So their music wasn't refined in that way. So I wanted it to feel very human, and the part of that was going to that side of musical history.
One of the things you get to do for this is you write a main title theme. Can you
Right.
talk about what you were trying to convey in that?
Yes. Main title was very important. It was really the sense that I had of taking in the whole story, and then sitting down and playing the cello and the viola and kind of coming up with a melody that didn't rely on a lot of complex harmony. It was more like wanted something you could sing. This felt like a folk tune that might have been, from 1650 Ireland or something like that. And so it and as it went, and as I kind of got deeper and deeper in it, it became almost like a lullaby, like a dark lullaby. There's another thing I actually was studying up on. It's interesting. Most lullabies from around the world, and we're talking cross culturally, are very dark,
Yeah.
both musically and lyrically. It's always something very kind of nasty happens in it, and this is what, for some reason, this is the tradition, and the tragedy of kind of good intentions going wrong, which is like really a theme in the show, that we all are faced with at times in our lives. But this is on a massive epic scale. So it's taking this really humble, small kind of melody that you would sing to a baby and turning it, then conducting the Philharmonia of London and having this massive wall of sound play this melody, kind of spoke to the storyline for me, and so that's what I went with.
Now you're submitting the first episode, Daybreak, right, for Emmy consideration?
Yes, exactly. Right.
Which is basically like a movie itself. I mean, it's 90 minutes long, so it's
Right.
Why did you choose that episode?
It's interesting because that's how it really kicked the whole. Not only did it start the story that we know that's now continued into now season 2, but it's musically where I laid all the foundations. There's a lot there. The themes are there that continue on through the series, and sometimes it's just this is a great thing about also doing this many hours of real estate on it. You're doing all of this music. There are moments that are just a 5-note harp figure that's very quiet in the pilot that ended up being a big, on the end of season 2, an overture, almost like a requiem, so all of these building blocks are there. So for anyone that follows the show, you can hear them in that first one, and certainly the theme starts right in the very first scene, and that's actually after I watched that scene is when I went back and I sat down and I started writing the main theme.
Right. Now, you said you were working on season 2. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Season two is not on the air yet. It's coming in a few weeks, I believe. But we finished all the way through. Season 2 is amazing.
Okay.
Yeah, really unbelievable where it goes. It's amazing.
Talk a little bit about working with Tyler Sheridan, who, as you said, I mean, he wrote every episode, he directed every episode.
Yeah.
What was that collaboration like between you two?
He's incredible. He's an amazing storyteller. I Oscar nominated, amazing. Just the thing is that he is so unusual in the way he approaches things. He's really outside the studio system. I mean, he belongs in that Yellowstone, in real life. He's got his ranch, and he doesn't really He's not in LA, you know, he doesn't come out here. And when he does, he'll come in walking into the studio and he's wearing his Spurs, you know, dusty Spurs. He's great. I love him. And he's such a storyteller with the music. He's very um, savvy and knows the music history of film, but also knows music history outside of film. And it's very important to him to have the live element. This is something we agreed on right from the beginning. It's very unusual for a show to have only live music and nothing that's sampled or in the box, as they say, right? So everything had to go fly through the air and hit a microphone was the kind of rule. So which takes time. Conducting an orchestra, I went to Abbey Road and conducted in London. I played cello and viola and piano and all sorts of things here myself. And it was a combination of layering me playing many instruments, some fiddle soloists, and then the orchestra. And you need a very strong director, producer of a show, creator, writer to get that to be part of what is done episode to episode. You just don't see it anymore. In the 60s, maybe. 70s, sure, maybe. But it started to drop off when synthesizers and keyboards came into fashion. And for something like this, I'm just glad that he was there to collaborate. And we're working together again on the movie project. So
Can you tell us anything about that?
Yeah. It's incredible. It's Those Who Wish Me Dead. And he's shooting it right now, and it's going to be incredible. Very intense. And the scope, it's about something that's actually very difficult to shoot. It's smoke jumpers, and there's it's incredible. So that's coming up.
Before I let you go, let me ask you. I mean, you've gotten a couple of Emmy nominations before. You've also gotten a couple of BAFTA nominations.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is what we're talking about now.
Yes, that's right.
What does that kind of recognition mean for you?
It's I think I grew up loving watching the Emmys and the Grammys and the Oscars and everything, and to me it is amazing to even be in kind of the conversation. So in a sense, when I have been nominated, it just feels amazing to be. You hear it all the time, recognized by your peers, but truly you think, boy, I feeling like kind of the perpetual outsider. It always is such a pleasant surprise when something like that happens. And so if it happens, great, but I'm going to keep on doing what I'm doing regardless.
Well, we also found out earlier this year you were I guess a finalist for the Oscars with Crazy Rich Asians. So
yeah, that was great. Yeah, that was really great to see. It's I just kind of I'm in the studio right now, but I'm in here 99% of the time, and kind of that in the room with no windows and no clocks, and it's composing is a kind of most of your life's in isolation, and so when you do actually it's in a way communicative when you get to talk to other composers, but certainly when you're nominated, then you think, wow, they're also listening, and that's pretty cool.
Well, Brian Tyler, thank you so much for your time. It's a pleasure talking with you again. Congratulations.
You too, man.
Thank you. And thanks to all of you at home for watching. Make sure you click the like and subscribe button below, and make sure you visit us on goldderby.com.